The bill is about the use of drones by local law enforcement agencies for surveillance. And basically what it says is that law enforcement can't use a drone for surveillance without a search warrant. Then it's got some other exceptions to deal with emergency situations of safety and terrorism, but basically it's saying you need a search warrant if you want to use a drone to gather information about somebody. I think what's interesting about this idea is that you have some traditionally left-leaning civil libertarian groups like the ACLU and some traditionally right-leaning libertarian groups as well that really came together on this point. We had Republicans as strong and proud chief co-sponsors of the bill, and I think it's a pretty strong indication that there's very, very widespread public support for this kind of measure. To me, this bill is about privacy, and these bills are about privacy, but they're also about technology. And I think we need to be really careful as we see technological change and progress to make sure that we don't let it get ahead of our basic reasonable expectations of privacy. With electronics and computer software being what they are today, the possibility, at least the theoretical possibility, of governments to engage in surveillance and to invade in what anybody would think to be a reasonable level of privacy is just totally unlike what was the case certainly a generation ago, and not to mention is entirely unlike what existed at the time that the Fourth Amendment and the Constitution were written. If we want to enjoy the fruits of these technologies, we need to make sure we have a legal framework in mind to enjoy them in a responsible way. So one thing that was very interesting when I worked on this bill is every colleague I went to said, yeah, this is a good idea, but why don't you do something else too? What about weapons on drones? What about drones owned by private individuals? What about drones owned by private companies? Like, for example, should a foreign corporation be able to fly a drone over the Caterpillar campus to photograph trade secrets, rather than just try to ram through an overly large, possibly inadequately thought through piece of drone legislation? Instead, we're going to put together a study committee, but it'll really look at all these different issues carefully and, I hope, bring back to the legislature by next January a comprehensive package of recommended drone legislation so we can really put in place the kind of regulatory regime that makes sense for this new technology.